and welcome to goingballistic.org. I am Donna Carter, founder of Going Ballistic, and we are so excited to have Lieutenant Colonel Alan West with us today. And so just stay tuned.
111, 110.
Hello, Colonel. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today.
No, it's my pleasure, Donna. God bless, and it's good to be with you.
Thank you. So, yes, we have a little bit of history, but I am kind of like you, so it's not so much a political endeavor for me anymore. In fact, Going Ballistic tries to stay out of that as much as possible. It's really gone beyond blue and red and black and white and all those things they want us to focus on, and it's come down to good and evil and right and wrong. And I have, since COVID and since, Hunter's laptop and the FBI and now, of course, the delve I've done into the schools and the Uvalde and other school shootings and mass shootings in general, and just the personal loss of confidence in my own doctor, in my son's teachers, in law enforcement on the highest level, and just knowing that it's not just hyperbole anymore, it's not a game anymore, and that if we don't do something, that we're going to lose it all. And I know you, as much as anyone, is aware of that, and you are on the front lines every day. And so I just really am open to hear what you think about where we are and where we're going, and how to shift our direction.
Well, it's interesting that you brought it up, because I don't like talking about political parties, because I think more so it's about our principles and values, and it's about the system of governance that we're supposed to have here in a constitutional republic, where we are elevating the individual, their rights, freedoms, and their liberties, not the institution of government to rule over them. And so when I think about where we are right now, I just kind of wrote a piece. It's on my Substack page, and it was called America's Version of Bizarro World. And maybe some of you all can remember the old DC comic strip where there was an opposite world, an opposite universe, where everything was up was down, down was up, whatever you want to call it. And so I kind of tied that back to a biblical verse, Isaiah 5:20, where it said, "Woe be to those who are called evil good, good evil, light darkness, darkness light, bitter sweet, and sweet bitter." And that's where we are today in the United States of America. The things that we know which are clearly evil, going after our children, targeting our children, exposing children to, grown men suffering from a mental condition called gender dysphoria, and allowing them to display their genitals and things of this nature. We look at the fact that in our system of education, and not too far away from you, in the Marlin High School, the independent school district, they had to cancel graduation because they did not have enough kids that could actually meet the requirements for a diploma and graduate. But yet our kids can be taught all these other, insidious and silly things that are along an ideological agenda. And you look at Uvalde and what happened down there, and instead of going after legal, law-abiding citizens, gun owners like you, myself, and so many others, what was the real cause behind what happened in Uvalde? Number one, the shooter should not have been allowed to get a firearm because he lived in the home with his grandmother and grandfather. His grandfather was a felon. And every one of us know by law, felons are not supposed to, number one, ever possess a firearm, nor be in a home where they can have access to firearms. So how was it that this young man could put down the address of his grandfather and it did not come up with an alert and deny him from getting weapons? And then on top of that, you had the law enforcement officers that did not go into that school and rectify, challenge that situation, much the same as what we saw that happened in Nashville, where they ended that siege after the sad losses of 6 lives, to include 3 9-year-olds. But it was nowhere near the travesty that we saw and tragedy that we saw in Uvalde. Then on top of that, you had law enforcement that would not allow the parents to go in and protect their children. And here in the United States of America, we have a Second Amendment right that says I should be able to defend myself and also my family as well. But they were denied from doing that. So we're in a very interesting situation in our country, and to include here in the state of Texas, where I guess illegal immigration is something that is good. Instead of protecting our homeless veterans and jobless veterans, we're giving them taxpayer money, cell phones, flying them all over the country. So we've got a lot that we have to stand up for. And what I have seen in you over the 3 years that we've known each other is that you are a person that you really weren't engaged, you really weren't involved, but then all of a sudden that light hit you. It's like your road to Damascus moment. And many more of us have to have a road to Damascus moment where we realize that we've got to get engaged. We got to get involved. We got to protect our life, our liberty, our property, our families, or else there is an evil out there, as it says in the Bible, beware of the devil, because he is lurking around seeking for whom he can destroy. And that's exactly what is happening in our country right now.
I mean, you are so right. And it's funny because when you talk about that moment, and I remember how it actually started, which was me picking up the phone and offering to mow the grass at a building. And so for so long, the us and them, the establishment, the people in position have sort of said, don't worry about things. We're going to take care of it all for you. And we have blindly said, okay, and given them the reins to all of that. And then now that we're seeing they've totally dropped the ball, that it is that we do have to wake up. And I don't know what it's going to take. And then that's why I am so grateful for someone like you who is actually concerned with doing what needs to be done, regardless of the effect, whether it's people are going to like it or not like it. And that's not really my goal. I mean, sure, I hope, people like going ballistic or like what we're doing and try to help us along. But at the end of the day, I felt called. I could no longer sit and do nothing. And as soon as that pivot is made, doors open. And I mean, if God is in this, and we know he is, and that's what I've been thinking lately is like, we already know love wins. And, but for us to stand and do nothing, as truth is just perverted, and, just the whole idea of, free speech was to lovingly let people say whatever it is they wanted to say, but it was never intended for us to set aside truth, to let lies become what is dominantly spoken. It was never it was to protect the truth. And I just feel like all these lies, and like I say, it's not just one area anymore. It's from every aspect of our lives. And for me, finding out what you're passionate about usually stirs up some anger for me, because just the mama bear comes out, and I am not going to do nothing. And the smallest platform, I believe is to give you the opportunity to help us see the truth, because we are still so blinded by just the lies that we're being told, and then just don't worry, everything's going to be fine, everything's going to be fine, and it's not.
Well, it's interesting you say that. There was a great quote that came from a real statesman, Sir Edmund Burke, and he said that all that is necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men and women to do nothing. And I think that people have been so busy living their lives, taking care of their children, and just staying within their respective lane. And they thought that, okay, I'll go out, I'll vote for this person. They've got my best interest at heart. And now we're coming to find out that they don't have your best interest at heart. And I believe that this turning point happened really through the whole COVID episode, when people all of a sudden said, why are you telling me, a healthy person, I can't go outside my home? I can't even go out and play with my children. You're restricting me. And if I study and research on this and I say something different other than the talking point narrative, you're canceling me. You're suppressing my free speech. That really got it started. And when parents were all of a sudden in the same house with their kids, because everyone was locked down, and they looked over their kids' shoulder and they saw what was going on that computer screen, that's when parents all of a sudden realized, this is not what I was entrusting teachers to do with my child. And then that gets elevated to the point where parents start to show up at school board meetings. And you've heard me say before, the most important elected position in the country is school board. And a lot of people used to say, hey, Colonel, what are you talking about? You on crack cocaine or something? I mean, what about president and all this other stuff? Now people realize why school board is so important. But then when you talk about the highest levels of corruption in law enforcement, you've got the Department of Justice and an attorney general working to say that parents showing up to school board meetings to say we want our kids to be taught, not indoctrinated. Now we're going to classify them as domestic terrorists. Or when you think back to the Virginia gubernatorial election, when Terry McAuliffe, during that debate, stood on that stage and said parents do not have a right in deciding what their children are being taught. And now you fast forward to where we are today. You've got the president of the United States of America, the vice president, and the White House spokesperson saying that your children are not yours, that your children belongs to everybody, mainly to them. So I don't know what other thing it will take to get people to understand that now is the time to stand up and protect your homes, protect your families. This whole thing about gender affirming care. Now, Donna, think about how oxymoronic that is, with the emphasis on moron. You can't change or affirm your gender other than being male or female. I don't care what you do. So what they're really talking about is mutilation of children's bodies. Now, these are children under 18 years of age. They can't get a tattoo. They can't go out and buy cigarettes. They can't go out and drink. They can't vote. And so now we're being told that children as young as 5, 6 years of age can decide and determine what gender that they are. And so all of this constant undermining of our fundamental, systems and our traditions and our values are really causing people to be upset. And look at what is happening with Bud Light. Look at what is happening with Target, with Kohl's, and some of these other people, these corporations that are trying to push this on us. People are saying, I'm not going to buy your product. I'm just not going to participate in this. And at some point in time, they're going to realize that we have to be in the business of making money. And our shareholders, which are, the folks out there, they're going to start backing away from us. So it's so important that voices like yours and the everyday American citizen is out there speaking up. And one of the things that I've always said is that God does not call the equipped. He equips those that he calls. And I think you are a living example of exactly that.
Well, thank you. It never feels like you're equipped. And that's the thing. I think us as a society have focused so much on how we feel, which again is a lie. Just because I feel like my children are being taken care of for 8 hours a day, the fact is, when they stopped letting me come in the building and they wanted us to just line up in our cars and drop them off and not come into the classroom, like that should have been a red flag.
Yeah.
And at some point the truth is going to come out. And what I hope is happening is that truth is finally is coming up, and whether that's the idea of lovingly letting people change their identity, when we know that the statistical facts show that when they do the surgeries and the medications, that they're more likely to end in a suicide, that it does not make them happier. And this is, again, regardless of what you think or feel about allowing someone to do it, we know that it's not a good idea for their own personal well-being. That we know that. And the same thing with the school shootings. We know that it's not a matter of guns, and it's not even a matter of crazy people. That what we're allowing to happen to our children through the desensitizing and the romanticizing of homicide through video games and the movies that they're watching is what is finally happening, that they can't push it in all day long, right? It goes to the be careful, little eyes, what you see. And the studies have shown that these shootings are not random, that they're going into them as if they have done it before, because they have repeatedly.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that when you talk about these mass shootings, and of course at churches and schools, evil is always going to look for a place where it can have easy access. And that's what we see happening. And we spend so much money on sporting event security or entertainment venue security, but the least of those are children. That's where we find such a lack of seriousness with the security for our kids. And so you look at what happened in Uvalde, you look at what happened in Nashville, where there should have been someone there. Even if you have a single point of entry and exit, you still have to have someone there to guard or watch over it. And when you talk about the thing with truth, and you tie it to this thing of mass shooting, how interesting it was that the media, certain media outlets, they wanted to mention nothing about the fact that this was someone that was in Nashville, someone suffering from gender dysphoria. A young female who thought that she was a male, and for whatever reason decides to go in there and shoot up adults and children. For what were you going to gain from that? And this is all because in the state of Tennessee, they had passed legislation saying that we're not going to allow children to have their bodies mutilated. We're not going to allow children to be subjected to these puberty blockers or hormonal therapies because of what it can do damaging them. And they're not in a position to make these type of decisions. But when you get to the point where people have changed truth into aligning it with an ideological agenda, and you're right, it's about telling that lie. It's gender. You're not allowing gender affirming care to your child, and therefore we as a government will come in and take your child away from you because of what you're not allowing to happen. That is happening in the state of Washington. The state of Washington actually passed a law that parents lose control of their child if their child says, I want to have a surgery, and you say no. So really what we see happening is an undermining, a usurping of the authority of the parent in the household. Like I said, again, being told that you don't have a right to decide what your child is being taught. Your child is not your own. And oh, by the way, we're going to put your child in these schools where we're not going to properly educate them, so they're not going to be prepared to go out into the world. And then on top of that, we're not going to provide the proper level of security for your child so that they can be exposed to even more dangers. That's the truth about what is happening in our country, in our state, in our local communities. And it's so important that we have the scales fall off of our eyes, much the same as when Saul was converted to Paul, so that we can see more clearly what is happening here. Because remember what it says in the Bible, my people suffer for lack of knowledge. And when, your podcast and so many others of people that have heard a calling is so important to get the truth out there, not this subjective thing, or like Oprah Winfrey said, there's your truth and there's my truth. No, there's only one truth. It's not bizarro world. There's male and female, man and woman, and that's it.
Amen. Well, and the fact is that we know certain things. And if we were able to have open dialogue like this, then we could always refer to the facts around each instance, like COVID, for instance, just all the deaths that happened without loved ones around them, with
Yes.
all the weddings that did not happen, the inability to have a funeral, just all these horrific, really heartbreaking things that were just cast aside and not even talked about. And just the failure of, I say media loosely because the media is supposed to incorporate both sides and actual truth and provide the facts as we know them. And that's just not what's happening anymore. And that's why, this whole thing is hell hath no fury. Like I will no longer be lied to.
Yeah.
And told, don't worry about it. Everything's fine. I can't stand it anymore, and I don't know what to do about it. And that's how, of course, this is all kind of came about. Is I can no longer rely on the people in charge to take care of my children.
Yeah.
If at the end of the day it were to have happened where my son will go to school, and I called the sheriff's department, like, are we ready? If it were to happen, have we done every single thing we know of to make sure that we've taken every precaution? And the answer was no. And the $4,500 to have one rifle resistant ballistic shield, like, has anybody thought to prepare that much? And, it's just so unfortunate that we assume that these things are being done, and they're not. And part of that, I believe, is true repentance. Like, I have to be willing to admit that I have, over the last 30 years, let the ball slip. Like, and I know wonderful, godly people who've served on student on school boards and things like that. And we have to be able to say, I am responsible. This happened under my watch, and admit that we can no longer continue down the path we're going, that I have set us on, by turning a blind eye because I didn't have a child, or just being there thinking that the money and the funding was so important that it had to be that we are going to do these certain things, because without the money we won't be able to educate our kids. It was all a lie. It was all a lie, and we have to do that about face, and it starts with owning up to our own failures.
It's very interesting you bring that up, because, when you live in a constitutional republic like the United States of America is, when you have these incredible rights and freedoms and liberties that the individual is endowed with by the Creator God, no other country like that, there's a level of responsibility that comes with that as well. We talk about the checks and balances and, our system of governance, which is supposed to be happening. But we also have a system of checks and balances that we have to take responsibility for. We just cannot continue to allow people, we just check the box and we send you to be on the city council, on the school board, the county commission, to be the sheriff, to be the state house representative, to be the state senator, to be the governor, president, member of Congress, whatever. And we never check back on you. We never keep you in balance. We never keep you focused. We never hold you accountable and responsible for what you're supposed to do, which is representing me and protecting our life, our liberty, and our property. And so I think that there is an awakening that has to happen, that whereby people realize that there are folks that are out there in many of these elected positions that they don't really have your best interests at heart. They may have their own self-interest at heart. They may have special interests at heart. And so when you think about the going back to the COVID thing, which I think is going to be a huge pivot point for the United States of America, because all of a sudden, if you didn't take a shot, you lose your job. You can't go here. It's almost like you get the scarlet letter put on you. Well, why weren't we allowing people to make the choice and the decisions? Monoclonal antibody therapy treatments, the ivermectin, the ivermectin, what's the other? Hydroxychloroquine, all of these other, treatments that you could have got, or just tell people to get on a D3 protocol, get on a zinc protocol, take these pills every day to build up your immune system, to
Go
be healthy.
outside.
Go
Going
out,
outside.
going outside,
Yeah.
getting fresh air. And why did we not say that the people that were mainly affected by COVID were people with certain comorbidities, folks that had high blood pressure, diabetes, heart disease, obesity, things of this nature? But again, now we're telling kids, 5, 6 months old, they have to get a jab in the arm. Show me the data where they were affected by that. And so now it has gotten to even more egregious what we see happening, and that the government is now telling you, Donna Carter, you can't have this type of stove in your house. You can only have this type of stove. You can't have this type of dishwasher in your house. You can only have this type of dishwasher. Oh, as a matter of fact, we're going to get rid of all gasoline combustion engines by 2030. I want you to understand something. That's 7 years from now. So basically, they're saying that we're going to force you into what kind of car you can drive, which, oh, by the way, means we're going to restrict your freedom of maneuver and your freedom of movement, because out where you live, I don't think there's a whole lot of electric charging stations out there. So how does this work? So that's why it's so important that people take this responsibility to understand that if you don't stand up for your freedoms and liberties, someone else is going to take them away from you. And you cannot continue to operate in this, well, I just did not know. There are many different avenues that you can use to find out, to know. And I always challenge people that, instead of having these Oprah Winfrey book clubs and all these other things and poker night and whatever, maybe you should sit down and talk about some of these policies. Maybe you should share some thoughts and perspectives, because poker ain't going to save America and Oprah Winfrey ain't going to save America. But if we don't have forums like what you have here, if we don't bring people in like you're going to do on July the 15th and start talking about the essence of who we are in this nation, the fact that here in the state of Texas, we could not get it passed that China cannot buy up land in the state of Texas. Now, these are our legislators elected by Texans to go and represent Texas and to defend Texas. But yet they say it's fine to have our number one geopolitical foe coming in and buying up our land. So it's little things like that that people need to be armed with and understand, so that they can go out and make better decisions about who they're sending to be their elected representative in this democracy. And you're so right. I'm worried about this fascism, this suppression of free speech. We cannot have government working with private sector entities to shut down people that are saying things that they don't want them to say. That's a dangerous road that we could be on.
Well, and the whole time you're talking, of course, my heart starts to beat a little faster, because the one thing we haven't talked about is the election integrity. And that is another whole entire lie. And, the idea that it's always happened a little bit and that's just to be expected, or whatever. I don't, you want to go down any rabbit holes, and there's so many that we could go down. And, just the inability of a party to come out as a party behind someone other than the incumbent in the primary. I mean, how can it actually even be an honest election if we as a party member can't support someone that we want to represent us and until it's already chosen for us? And there's just a lot of things at stake. And I, as a Texan, I'm taking a lot of it personally. This situation that we're in, I believe, would be very different had the election gone your way. And, and I mean that in a favorable to Texas, to me, as a citizen. And, as well as I do, all over the world, if you say you're from Texas, that has always carried a certain clout and a certain meaning. And they are trying to change that. I do not like it. And I have met a lot of good people that have moved here from California. And so I'm not opposed to people moving to Texas. I'm all for it as long as it's legal and as long as it's because you support what we stand for and don't want to change that.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the things that needs to happen here in the state of Texas, you got 254 counties in the state of Texas. But if you're not careful, there's a very few select counties, the major urban population centers, that are going to dominate the political winds here in Texas. I live up here in Garland, Texas, which is part of Dallas County. Dallas County was 63% for Robert Francis O'Rourke. That tells you something. And when you go down to Travis County, which is Austin, and of course we know what Austin looks like and what they are doing, what they stand for. Houston and Harris County, San Antonio, Bexar County, El Paso County, and even down to Corpus Christi and Nueces County, you have some issues there. They, by way of population, by way of number, will end up just overpowering the rest of these, rural counties. And of course, the left has its sights on Tarrant County now, as well as Collin County, Denton County, basically the whole metroplex here in North Texas. So what I'm encouraging people to do is to take action down at the county level. This is why county commission races are so important, because elections, coming back to election integrity, elections are executed at the county level. And the county is the place where you can make all the decisions about the processes and the procedures of an election. So if you have a rural county like where you live, they can say, maybe we're going to go to paper ballots. We're not going to have these machines, and we're definitely not going to be tied into the internet. Maybe we're going to go and do a voter registration roll review so that we can make sure that we have clean voter registration rolls, especially when you've had millions of people come across the border into Texas illegally. We got to make sure that they're not being able to vote, because as a matter of fact, there are people that are pushing for illegals to get driver's licenses in the state of Texas. Now, if you're here illegally, you get a driver's license, guess what that becomes? That becomes a picture of photo ID. Guess what you're going to end up doing? Somehow you're going to end up voting. So we have to start looking at this at that county level. One of the things that that did not get through in this session was ranked choice voting. And I would love for you to maybe have a session on ranked choice voting, which is the catastrophe. It's like trying to play March Madness with an election, and that's what they did in Alaska, and now they're trying to get rid of it. But yet we did not prevent ourselves from having ranked choice voting here in the state of Texas. So again, that's something that at the county level, the commission can say, we're not ever going to have ranked choice voting here in the state of Texas. And the other thing that came out of this legislative session that just ended earlier this week, Donna, is that the Democrats here in the state of Texas blocked a resolution which would have led to a constitutional amendment that says that only U.S. citizens can vote in the state of Texas. So what does that tell you? That shows you exactly their hand, where they want to go. So at the county level, the county commission, they can go ahead and pass a resolution that says, no matter what the state has said, we're going to say here in our county that only U.S. citizens can vote in whatever county that we're in. So those are some of the things that you can push at your county level, and you can get with others to make sure that they're happening that relate to election integrity.
Well, I just love talking to you, and I could do it all day long. But I
Wow.
know our viewers are probably going to need a cutoff point at some time. And so,
Yeah.
if you like this discussion, right? If you're open to the fact that I love you, I love you no matter who you vote for, and no matter what you think or feel about what I do and who I vote for, and that all I want is to be able to look at the facts as they are and see how it aligns with what we're trying to achieve. And so, yes, on July 15th, Going Ballistic is going to be having, and it's open to the whole state. We want everybody to come and share and just talk and eat and listen to good music and be able to be united around the values that we share, and to be able to tolerantly discuss the differences we may have, and just know that love wins in the end. And we know that the war is already won, and but I am not going to lay down as the battle ensues. And so I just appreciate everything you're doing. I am just honored to be able to just stand alongside of you, and know that that there are good people, and that they're out there, and we're all so ready to do whatever it is it takes, and that we just need good direction. And I love the voting information, and we've got an election coming up, which we always do. But so please just know that we need you out there watching to get involved. And so please look and find Alan on your podcast, Steadfast and Loyal. It's awesome. I love it.
Thank
And
you.
goingballistic.org. If you have any questions and want to come see us, then July 15th is a good time to do that. You can find the information about that on the website. Colonel, thank you so much.
Thank you, Donna, for having me.
Godspeed.
111, 110.